Welcome to another episode of It's Complicated. Unfortunate news right out of the gate, folks. We had to let Larry go. He's been fired from the show.
Do I get a final paycheck, or I'm here? I'm still logged in. If you don't want me here, you need to make it not public then, because I'm just going to keep showing up. It's like
we didn't fix the glitch.
Just like Three Ravens, I will show up. I don't care what you say. I will be there.
Well, here he is, and we love to have Larry back. Hey, this week is sponsored by my buddy, and as well as this week, he has sponsored the first comedy show, Cole Norton of American Family Insurance. So I want to give a big shout out to Cole Norton and American Family Insurance. Thanks for sponsoring. He's an awesome dude. Hey, what I want to know, Larry, is how did your weekend go?
It was a great weekend. I did a run of shows up through Iowa and South Dakota, and man, it was good crowds. They were fun shows. Carson Tuttle up in Iowa City puts on a great show. Sioux City, the boys of Siouxland Comedy did a great job promoting that, and we got a good group of folks out who we all agreed, though, by the end of the show it was hot and we were all sweating because we all agreed maybe I should have shut up at 45 minutes instead of taking it to the hour that I did. Let's see, Watertown, South Dakota with Lee Bruns and Watertown Live Entertainment. That was a great show up at Harry's. Great room. Kind of reminded me if your room was upstairs instead of next door.
Yeah. Right
real intimate, but solid. You could fit just enough people in there.
I think I saw either some footage or a photo, and I thought it looked like a pretty cool setup.
It was a rad setup. And then to Sioux Falls with my buddy Nathan Holtz and a bunch of other comics. We did the last comedy show that's ever going to be, well, the last show maybe, or at least comedy show, that's going to be at Spellbound Theater. My reputation preceded me, and they shut it down prior to me even being on stage. But yeah, I got to do a run of headlining shows, and got to run the hour and stretch my legs.
Perform?
What's that?
You didn't get to perform?
At Spellbound? Yes, they did. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You were being facetious.
I was being facetious. They just decided that I guess the guy that owns it is moving instead of just running the theater, and because he's got a theater and a shop and everything right there, he's a magician, and so he's moving up to doing residencies where he gets to go actually perform magic. And so
that's awesome.
I felt very honored that he had let me come in and headline the final show. So
yeah, that's fantastic. Did he do any magic on Mount Rushmore and throw your face on it?
If you squint just right, Teddy Roosevelt looks it's very who's on Mount Rushmore? I don't even, it's
let's move on, because I don't want anyone to question my historic
George Carlin, Richard Pryor,
Eddie Murphy.
Well, see, that's your okay. All right. You know what? It's yep, and that's people mistake my face for Shrek's all the time. So
speaking of Shrek, you know what? Before we introduce our very first comic for our upcoming comedy series, I gotta clear the air. I just want to rap a little bit about this Matt Rife character. I gotta know how you feel about it, and I'm gonna give you. Oh boy.
I just like the way you say this Matt Rife character. You said it like my grandma.
Gosh darn it, darn tootin'. Hey, this is what grinds my gears. This dude, people think that he had some sort of meteoric rise to fame. He worked his ass off, and he's been around the block a time or two, or 10. He's been doing comedy even since before he was 18. Like 14, 15 years old, I think is when he started doing some kind of comedy, and I think he was on the Nickelodeon Wild 'N Out show. So that dude has worked his tail off to get to where he was. So what if he's good looking? He might be a good looking dude, and maybe that's not typical for comedy, except for you and him.
Thank you. Yeah. From one young hot boy to another, Matt, you're doing great.
Hot boy summer. Why aren't you guys on tour together?
I don't know. I think I honestly think he's threatened by my abs.
Wow.
You missed the phone call. I'm sure there was a phone call.
I'm sure there was. I'm sure it was when I was on the road, and I was like, I can't answer that right now. I'm driving because I'm a responsible driver.
Yeah, and you just kind of hit the ignore button. No, it's just Matt. I'll call him back at some point.
Yeah, and then oops.
Yeah.
No,
well, the last thing I want to say. Go ahead.
I was saying I was just holding out for that for the Bert Kreischer tour.
That's right. Yeah, the last thing I want to say about that whole situation, and then I'll give it to you. Maybe kind of give your thoughts as a comedian, because it's always good to have those perspectives. But it seems like a lot of people, he's an easy target. He's easy to hate right now because on the outside, it does look like he was an overnight sensation. So I just don't really understand the mindset of a person that just wants to hate a guy for being successful.
Well, I mean,
I guess that's where I sit.
Sure. I mean, you're a performer. You're a musician. You understand that performers just have jealousy. Comedians in particular, especially because for so long it was supposed to feel like comedy was the last bastion for the misfits and nerds and geeks, and so you get somebody that's good looking, and they walk in, you're like, they're good looking and they're funny, God bless it. Oh, now I gotta try harder. Like for me, I'll be honest, I've watched his stuff. I understand why people like him. It's not my bag. Just like some people, my comedy isn't for everybody. And comedy isn't. If Dave Attell said, if you've got, as a newer comic, as you're coming up now, Matt's not newer, like you said, he's been around for a while and he has worked his tail off, his sweet, tight, peach-like tail. But no, like Dave Attell is like, as you're coming up and you're building an audience, if the entire room is laughing, you may not be doing your job right. But if you've got half the room that's laughing so hard they peed themselves, and the other half that's like, well, they were fine, the half that laughed so hard they peed themselves are going to go off and tell everybody that they, oh my God, this guy. So, I say all that to go back to, I mean, I look at him like, his crowd work, of course he's going to be flirty with attractive women. That's his demographic. I think that he's so handsome that it looks like somebody told an AI generator to put a handsome human together, and it's like he's so handsome nothing quite fits in correctly. But obviously the dude takes care of himself, and he's got a hell of a publicist. I mean,
oh man, I don't know how much that man, woman, whoever it is getting paid, but it's probably not enough.
Not enough
until this tour. Tour.
And like I said, I had known of Matt Rife. I had seen some of his stuff over the years, and he's good. I've seen him on like roast battles and stuff. I'm like, dude's good, dude's solid. Not my cup of tea, but who cares? Not everything has to be for me. I understand that, but I also understand that some people are they're jealous, and they're gonna make, especially comedians, we're gonna make jokes.
Sure.
I did a whole TikTok, like 2.5 minutes about it, about he and I like looking. It was like looking in a mirror. He and I just, but like just being like it's just jealousy. I get it. I mean, immediately when I saw that he was like getting a world tour, I'm like, but where has he been? I haven't. Well, I'm down here sending emails from the basement, with one eye kind of twitching, and jacked up on caffeine, and this this cat is doing his 1,000th sit-up to then stands up to announce his hanging out with Ashton Kutcher. I would
Yeah.
to announce the world
And
tour.
Mila Kunis.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that.
Hey, the last thing I'll say about it, we should probably move on from that aspect. We might both get in trouble. Is
I just know it's lonely there in Milwaukee, and I don't want to make you think too much about Matt Rife's
okay.
Milwaukee.
You know, you mentioned something about it being a dorm room, and I wanted to make it feel like even more of a college dorm, so I busted the guitar out.
Are you practicing Wonderwall?
Here's Wonderwall, brother. Hey, the last thing I want to say on Matt Rife is he's definitely not going to be everybody's cup of tea. What's going to be interesting for me, he's moving from rooms that are like 200 and 250 people that are intimate, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like our room, and a little bit bigger, to theaters. And I wonder how his approach translates, because it seems like a lot of his work, it's crowd work. So I wonder with a room that big if that gets lost in translation.
I'm with you. I'm curious to see how that works. Now I know I'd mentioned Bert's tour right now. Big J Okerson is on that tour. Big J does mostly crowd work. Does a lot of crowd work, and apparently he's been doing a lot of crowd work on this tour because he can see like the first few the rows, and enough people are in those first few rows that he can do crowd work with them. I am curious. That's the thing. I like this. A rising tide lifts all ships, right? So the more popular stand-up comedy becomes again, the more opportunities open up for all of us. And so I like to see people succeed. What I don't like is the idea that I have to start eating more salad because he's setting a precedent for us to have to be attractive or at least not disgusting.
That dude is 26 years old and probably eats Kit Kat and Mountain Dew for lunch. So I remember being 26.
Why are you trying to make me sad? Are you trying to make me sad? This run of shows, all I ate was turkey jerky and carrot sticks and black coffee during the day, and in the evening I let myself have some dinner. And I'm trying. I was just like, no, I don't want any Fritos flavor twists. Thank you. What I want is these carrot sticks. Delicious.
Honey barbecue.
Oh.
All right.
Sorry, my mouth
Larry.
I drooled. Yeah.
The people have waited long enough. No more pussyfooting around. It's time to introduce our first comic in our upcoming series.
Hey, all right.
Folks, he was a finalist on Last Comic Standing. He's been featured in Showtime's Shameless, and he voiced the lead marmoset in Rio. It's Francisco Ramos. Hello! Welcome to the show, Francisco.
I'm going to ask you to never open a segment like that again.
That was very Mrs. Doubtfire.
It wasn't. Thank you. That's what I thought.
Yeah. Hello!
Hello, San Francisco! Help us on the way!
Well, let's jump right into it. Folks, Francisco's here, and I heard tell that you actually majored in finance, international business.
I did, yes. I graduated from the University of Maryland, College Park, major in those two things, and yeah, it was. It's funny because like the last semester, which I was gonna take the class that I wanted to concentrate on, is when I was like, I took it and I was like, this is not fun. Like it just gave me that whole thing of like, this is what I'm supposed to do for the rest of my life, and it really like triggered something. I was like, this is not. It kind of like planted the seed of like what basically became the journey of me trying to, figure it out. Because I always, I was the funny guy in the group, always being funny. I always loved comedies and all that stuff, but I never really thought of it as a career until that time when I was supposed to do what I was gonna do. I didn't like it, and then I'm like, well, I gotta figure out what I like, and everything turned out to be comedy.
Nice. Well, this is serendipitous because I have a final exam. I'm actually going through my master's program while I'm over here. and I have a final exam in corporate finance.
Okay.
So I'm probably going to phone a friend.
All right.
Maybe you can hold my hand through it next week.
All right, good. But I mean, let me tell you, it's been like, I don't know, more than 20 years since I felt like I might give you like, I don't know if I don't want to give you some advice that's going to be like, what? This is nothing to do with finance. It's like, sorry, man. This is what I remember. Plus, I didn't pay attention that much anyway. So
Yeah.
But hey, I'll help you. I can Google, so don't worry about it.
Perfect. I'm gonna have you in my ear right here.
I'll use Investopedia, whatever that site is.
Well, Francisco, I was an experimental psychology major.
Oh, wow.
And then couldn't ever give a straight answer in class. Always gave the funny answer, made the professor laugh, and they were like, "That's great. It's wrong, but that's hilarious." And just had people be like, I bartended. I was always funny. What I found though is, those of us that start doing it and traveling around to do it, we meet people that are way funnier than us. We just figured out how to cash in on a personality trait. Do you find that to be kind of the same thing where you meet somebody and you're like, you're way funnier than me? Why are you? But if you put a microphone in front of them, they're going to just fold up and not know what to do.
Well, I think that's part of it. It's not just about being funny. It's about transferring that energy, funny energy or whatever personality to stage where especially to make strangers laugh, because that's what I tell people when I want to do comedy. I'm like, what is like, or like, well, like you have to be, when you're with your friends and hanging out and being, cracking jokes and being very funny and they're laughing. It's like, that's literally the same energy you have to bring when you do stand up. But the thing is like, those people in the audience, they don't know who you are. So you can talk stories about stuff that they don't get or stuff that you have to connect with them. So it's like, that's where I think a lot of people don't know how to, they're like, oh, I'm funny, but like, yeah, but it's, you gotta be, you gotta be funny for everybody and in different situations. And, and that's where the work I think comes. I mean, I feel like I'm very into sports. So it's like an athlete. I feel like it's like somebody that's very talented in, baseball or something, but then it's like, okay, but now you got to transfer it to the actual game and you have to know how to play the game and, and that's a different story from like,
absolutely.
Or basketball. Some people are really good at basketball, but like don't know how to play as a team. It's like, well, then you cannot play in the college or NBA or stuff like that.
Those are great points.
Well, you brought that up about the stories that don't translate to stage. How many guys at an open mic have we both seen where they show up for the first time with 20 of their friends and they tell a story that their friends get, everyone's cracking up, and everyone else in the room's like, what the hell are they talking about?
Yeah.
And then they come back the second or third time and bomb.
Yeah.
And then they're like, well, okay, well, thanks for letting me come by for a while, and we never see them again.
Yeah, no. I think that's the beauty also of a stand-up. It's like, it's so, the result is so immediate. Like, like there's nothing, it's not like, you can play an instrument and even if you suck, people just still clap politely or whatever. Like it's not been, but stand up is like, if people are not laughing and like, it's like, right. And I remember when I worked at the Comedy Store and I used, one of the things that we had to do was to host sometimes the open mics and stuff. And I would host it. And one guy came and he brought the same thing with his friends and stuff like that. He went up and he just didn't do good. He kind of bombed. And I remember going after him. I was like, you see how comedy is hard that even your friends can laugh. You can't force. It's like you can't force people to laugh.
Right.
And that's the thing. It's like it doesn't matter. To me, that's even worse when you bring friends and family because they get nervous like if they were on stage. So then they're when an audience is nervous and like they don't even want to laugh anyway. So it's like then it's like even worse. So it's kind of like.
Or it's worse when you have the one friend that's trying to help and goes ha ha ha.
Yeah.
And the whole room's like, what are you doing?
Yeah. It's like that Seinfeld episode with Kramer when he's like, when like he's trying to like help Jerry because he's bombing in purpose and he's like, and he talks about guy having, he's like, hey, he's like cancer. It's like, I got cancer. It's like, oh, he's like trying to like Kramer's trying to do it. He's like, what are you doing? He's like, no, you're forced.
You did bring
Speaking
up
of Seinfeld, when
I'm
I
a
opened
huge
up,
Seinfeld fan, by the way. So that's why
me too. when I opened up, you guys gave me Mrs. Doubtfire, and I was looking for more Seinfeld, so I'll work on that.
Okay. Well, you gotta. Well, what's the deal? You gotta talk like this. Okay. You gotta bring in more like.
Hello.
Yeah. Oh, you were doing. Oh, the stomach.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Hello. Yeah.
Do I get my credentials taken away if I say I've only seen like 2 episodes of Seinfeld?
Oh, goodness.
No, but you should watch more. I mean,
Right.
I would just start like in the maybe like big middle of second season. I think that's where I would just start.
I've watched a lot of Curb Your Enthusiasm, so
Yeah.
you know that's
literally I mean,
Yeah.
Curb is like more like the rated R version of Seinfeld, pretty much. So it's kind of like if you like that humor, you'll like Seinfeld.
Yeah.
It's pretty much by Larry David.
Francisco, you brought up you were bringing up a point that I wanted to get back to about stand up, and I think Brandon, you and I have talked about this because Brandon's a musician, and I said, you know, you were kind of alluding to it. Stand up is the only art form that you have to fail in front of other people to get better at.
Exactly.
Brandon, he's in his dorm room right now in Milwaukee. Don't let him lie to you. He's in Milwaukee. He's in his dorm room and he's practicing Wonderwall on his guitar.
Hell yeah, brother.
Every day so that he can impress the girls at the party. But he can do that and be like, okay, well, I missed it, and I can go back and practice.
Yeah.
You and I can write a set, practice it in front of the mirror, and be like, I got it, and then go to an audience and have them go, you suck. What are you thinking?
No, that's exactly 100% right. You're right. It's like this is the only form that I don't feel like even classes don't work. I mean, I think like taking like guitar lessons or acting, even or singing or dancing. Yes, classes and that you work. But like for stand up, I feel like you might take like one class. I read a book. I just read one book about stand up, and that kind of helped me how to like what's a setup, what's a premise, all this stuff, just to and kind of like the world. And then it's just then you like you said, you gotta go up and then just see if it works or not, because it is a thing that you cannot practice until you're there, because it's not just my thing is also it's not just about the bits that you're writing, especially in the beginning, because in the beginning you have to find what makes you funny, like your delivery and your persona, and to me it's like if you don't find that first, it's hard to make a joke funny if you don't know how to deliver it. You can have the funniest bit, but if you don't know how to deliver it, it's gonna fall flat. But if you're really funny and you can just make people laugh just by being, talking whatever, then it's like, then you got something. Because then when you start writing and you start putting everything together, then it's like, okay, now this is like I think this is where material and performance always comes to me. That makes a great, like one of the best comics, when it's like, it's not just writing, but it's also the performance, like a Bill Burr, like a Sebastian, Mark Maron, people like that. Like these are different types of performances, but they have a performance while delivering their good jokes. And I think that's, to me, that's always been what I've seen and what I like to do in terms of my comedy as well, is combining the both,
Nice.
Well,
great perspectives.
So, just to give folks some background, you grew up in Venezuela until you were 12, and then you came to America. Is that correct? I want to make sure of
Maryland, DC. I would say Maryland, DC area, because it's like Maryland. There's like it's called the DMV area, where like DC, Maryland, Virginia, where they all share. Like, I live in that pocket pretty much. So like, in the Maryland side. But yeah, we moved there when I was 12, and I grew up there. Went to middle school, high school, and then college, and so just grew up there all my life. Yeah.
And I know this almost seems like a dumb question to ask, but do you feel like that experience specifically shaped you and kind of worked, I don't know, shaped you, sculpted you into the direction of going into comedy, or you have a lot of, in case anyone that's watching this hasn't seen any of your clips, does that come into your performance, your stories, your jokes on stage, etc.?
Yeah, well, it wasn't a dumb question at all. That's actually a good question. So, but like, no, it's true. I think that's literally, and I go back, especially when I started doing it, and then I go back to like how I grew up and all that stuff. I'm like, oh, this is all these things, that happen in life happen for a reason. And then like, yeah, like you said, like I think all my growing up, because I went to like, my mom put me in a Catholic private school because she wanted me to keep, studying like the Catholic stuff. So it's like I grew up in that, and then I had my friends from that high school, and then I had my other friends who were from like international organizations like the World Bank, kind of like in the same kind of like how I came, like moved there when they were 12, 13 or 14. So I had those two kind of like growing up at the same time. So I knew, what I realized later on is like, oh yeah, I was making people laugh in different types of people, like I have like I would say, like in high school, I was Frank, and then with my other friends, I was Francisco, So then I would just go back and forth, and that kind of like always led me. I think it helped me really, hone my stand up and how to perform my life, my stand up life into any kind of audience. And I know how to, like, in terms of like, it doesn't matter, like you don't have to be Latino to get my jokes. You don't have to, all that stuff, which is like, that's what I always wanted. I mean, going back to Seinfeld, that's why I love that comedy. I love comedy that anybody can relate to. I love comedy and there's nothing better for me when people come to me after the shows and they're like, oh man, my mom was like that, or that happened to me with a girlfriend or stuff like that, because that's the kind of comedy that I always wanted to do, and that's the one that I like. But at the same time, I'm using my life to give also a little insight to like something that people might not know about, like, being from Venezuela or growing up here, from a different country or whatever, stuff like that. But always keeping it where people understand what's going on, and that connection, stuff like that.
Cool. Very cool. Hey, I always like to know and wonder, you mentioned you were big into sports, so what kind of things do you do to blow off some steam? What hobbies do you have?
Well, there's one that I can't mention here. I think you got it.
Well, you can tell us.
Put it in the private messages, because
that helps me blow off steam a lot, man. No,
does it involve laundry anyway? I know. I should.
Yeah, I'm only saying this because my fiance is not here. So. But no, I play. So tennis is like I played pretty much every sport growing up, and but tennis is the one that I started late. I learned the latest, and I feel like I'm the better at. Like, I think it's one of those ones where like, man, if I would have started this even early on, I think I had I could have been even much better. So tennis is the one that I really play at all. The one that I, kind of like, I just love being on the court, love being just hitting. I mean, because right now it's not even about playing matches. It's just about being on the court and hitting. So tennis is definitely one. And then, and sometimes when I get a chance, I like to do some surfing, as well, because I love the fact, or swimming too. Surfing or swimming, anything that takes me out of the disconnection from the phone and social media and stuff like that, which to me, that's kind of like my my meditation thing, or my thing of like where I'm like not thinking, because when you have the phone, I'm always looking at the phone. That's kind of like part of the being a comedian. You always have to check everything, kind of like, whatever. It feels like when you're disconnected, I love having at least 30 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, just not paying attention to that. And then, I feel like that's the thing that, I need,
I had a problem with that, being like, no, I love comedy. I'm going to be dialed into it all the time, 24/7. And I hit a point, it was a couple of years ago of burnout that I had never experienced. And so now, but what the advice that I was given by a comic that is kind of a mentor to me, he's like, hey, you can't write about things that are relatable if you're not going out and living life.
Exactly. I was gonna mention that. Like, you gotta live life in order to come up with the funny bits, because if you're not doing, and also, like you said, relatable, that's the key word, because I think that's, especially when you're starting as open micers, a lot of the jokes are just for comedians. So like, they make comedians laugh, but like a normal audience, I'm not gonna laugh because either maybe they're too edgy or too whatever, there's too extreme, because that's what, as comedians we always go for it. But for a regular person, they'd be like, that's too much. So it's like, you gotta, I feel like that's, I had that same thing when I started. I had to like stop at and be like, all right, I gotta live a life. I gotta go on vacations. I gotta do stuff,
Mhm.
and that's where the bits comes out, and that's where the material, the really good material comes out. So I agree with 100% with that.
Brandon, what? Let's see. Do we want to do the fun questions?
Give him the fun ones.
Okay.
Yeah, all right.
I like doing this though because it makes him have to edit a little bit. So,
Okay.
not that these weren't fun questions. I mean, these were fun, but they were.
No, yeah. But you gotta
Um,
just make it a little harder for him. Right?
Because here's the other thing. I could keep going down the comedy rabbit hole.
Oh, me too. I talk like I love
Mhm.
sharing all that knowledge.
Yep.
So like or whatever knowledge in terms that I grow, and then also discussing stuff like that. Because to me, it's like, it's like when you're so passionate about something, you just can't shut up. And sometimes I have to remember. Even I was telling myself, because I know Brandon's going like, this guy's gonna talk so much. I told him 5 minutes. And he just keeps talking about how he loves cam. So I was like, I gotta like dial it back a little bit. I'm the
Yeah.
same way.
I could talk shop all day.
Exactly.
I have a different show where I talk shop with people. So
Got it.
Yeah.
Let me know about that one.
Yeah, I'll let you know. Send me the info. Okay, so one, you said you go by growing up you went by Frank or Francisco. Does it matter?
Oh, you can call me whatever. I don't care. I can I
All
guess my state. But my friends call me Frank. I like Frank,
Okay.
Frankie, Francisco, anything, whatever.
So but anything is fine. Okay.
Yeah.
Phil.
I mean, it still sounds like an F.
It does.
I
It
guess
does.
so that makes
It's a big F, is what I just did. That's a big, not even a D minus. So okay, I have. We are very, for whatever reason, on our show, we have become very food centric and very.
Foodies?
I guess I don't know why we just always go to food. So what
It has nothing
is
to do with me or a restaurant called Three Ravens where Francisco will be.
Yeah.
nothing at all?
Nothing.
See how I put it on a T for you? I just waited. Just waited. But okay. What I want to know is not just your favorite go-to comfort food, but what is your favorite go-to comfort food and cocktail / libation combination? Like for me, hot fried chicken and a cold cheap beer is like that's what I want to make me feel good about life.
Yeah. Well, I have I guess a couple. I mean, I think pizza, like with and I love this. Everybody gets disgusted, but I love anchovies. So just like cheese pizza with anchovies.
If it's done right, delicious.
Oh,
I'm with you.
This, with thin crust, nothing I can just eat that, and then yeah, I love beer with pizza, but also in terms of my choice of drink that I if people always like, what's your number one drink? Is Scotch. I love Scotch, like single malt, especially single malt. The more smoky, the better.
All right, now we're getting into my territory. Here we go.
That's like a little Oban, Lefroy, kind of stuff like that. That's my stuff. So
Francisco, you may never want to leave the Midwest and where we have a restaurant. We have over 250 whiskeys and scotches on our shelves.
Okay, then I'm good. I love it. And that's my favorite. That's and it's funny because like I grew up with that because my dad especially drank a lot of not that he drank a lot, but that was like the and especially in Venezuela. It's actually, I remember one time somebody's told me or reading that is the number one country that exports Scotch. Like everybody drinks like Scotch over there. Like that's the number one thing when you go to a party, wedding, first communion, anything, a bottle of Scotch. So it's like that's kind of, and I love that. I love this tasting different ones, the sipping, and just feeling it, some neat sometimes, with a big cube of ice, all that stuff. I'm like, that's my jam, man.
Yep, I'm with you. Lagavulin is my go-to if I want a heavier, smokier Scotch. Balvenie is a good one.
Isla.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would that would be like one of those. Something we all have trips. I was like, oh man, get some, extra cash or something to go with friends and stuff like that. My thing would be to go to like Scotland and like tour like all this like catch facilities where they make and just have like tastings and stuff like that. And it's like
Heck yeah.
that'd be just awesome.
My wife's gotten to do that with her mom and her sister, and is like, I'm going to take you over there to do this. And I was like, yes, anytime I'm not working, we will figure it out when I'm not working, or if we can figure out how to get me some work over there, then we'll do it.
That'd be awesome.
Oh my God, wouldn't it?
But yeah, that's my drinks. I mean, those are my things, I think. And then I think I love Italian, like pasta. Like it's the stuff that I usually don't eat as much because I'm, to be on, to be on shape and all this stuff. It's like the stuff I always like. That's my like. Oh, if I could eat it every day, I would.
Yeah.
Sure. All right. I think you can tell a lot about a person and how they answer this. Bone in or boneless wings?
Bone in, man. I just I'm like weird in terms that I even ripped everything. Like I'm kind of even almost like eating bone in a way. Like I like eating like stuff like I have to have the bone. I think it's like, to me that's like I don't think wings work without. Then it just becomes nuggets. I don't know.
It's just chicken fingers.
Yeah, or chicken.
And don't get I love a good chicken.
I love it, but it's like that's like for a different thing, Like, but if I want wings, like when I order wings, I expect, bones and and ripping and putting in there, and then finding a way where should I put the ones that I just ate, something like that. Then it's like, where should I put it? Like all that stuff. It's like I love it. Yeah.
Heck yeah. Well, hey Francisco. Before we let you go, we do want to post a little bit of a clip. I don't know if you want to kind of lead us into the clip that we're getting ready to post up here to kind of give everybody an idea of your style. But if you want to lead it in, go for it.
Yeah. So basically, this is like earlier bits that I used to do when I, that basically it's a lot has to do with just growing up in the U.S., coming from, learning a different language because, and I think which is a lot of my comedy, which I like to do is pointing out stuff that sometimes, when you're you don't see that, like you go like, oh, well, I never realized that. But now that you mention it, it's true. Or like, I see your point of view. And that's kind of like the stuff and this is kind of like this bit is where about talking about salmon, how like it's such a, like to pronounce salmon. Because in Spanish, it's the whole thing with Spanish. The big difference between Spanish and English is that it's only 5 vowel sounds, a, e, I, o, u in Spanish. And then how it's written is how it's pronounced. So like for salmon, for example, there's an L in there. So it's like when you say in Spanish, you say salmon, because there's an L in there. But in English, you don't say the L. And and that's the whole point of the bit. I'm like, then why is it there? Like why? It's like, it's just, so that's the whole point of the bit. So that's kind of like
let's take a look at it.
All right. English is a very tricky language to learn. Because you get words with letters that are silent. Like they're there, but you don't mention them. You know what I mean? Like the word salmon. I hate that word. Why is there an L in there? I just have to pretend that it's not there? No, but I see the L. It's silent. Then get it out of there. If it's not making a noise, give it to lollipop. I think with all the immigration issues that are going on, I think that's how they should test people at the airport to see if they're American or not, you know what I mean? Just be like, sir, please pronounce this word if you want to get in the country. Salmon.
Oh man, that's great. Francisco, I've watched that probably 15 times, and I think a sign of really good comedy is that I laugh every single time. It doesn't get old.
That is true, because not just to my own horn, but like just from other comics that I've seen perform that I know their bits, and then I see them, and then like you said, I just laugh because it's just funny, It's just something. Even though, especially with comedy, because as we all know, it's like comedy's about surprise. Because like, you know, it's hard to but it's also weird to me too that when I do bits or when I do shows, sometimes people come up to me like, oh, you didn't do this bit, like for example salmon, and I'm like, well, I don't do it anymore. It's like, so sometimes I want to get to the point that maybe towards the end of shows to be like, ask people like, hey, like encore, you know, you're the musician, Brandon.
Yeah.
They'd be like, hey, what bits that I used to do want, you know, you might do it if people want to something like that. Yeah. But yeah. Oh, guess that.
Very cool. Well, Larry, do you have any more questions for Francisco before we let him go?
No, never mind.
Okay. No, wait, what? Yeah, you gotta ask it. You can't.
No, well, you're gonna have to cut this out. I was gonna say, do you know what you're in for coming to this deep in the Midwest?
I definitely give me. I love to, you know, anything that you wanna give me. Tell me, please give me any information or and what to expect. I love, you know, let me.
I was the Three Ravens and Brandon, the whole crew over there. They're fantastic, but. Yeah, I didn't know if this is this like your first trip to this part of the Midwest?
I think so. Yeah, I don't think I've gone, you know, obviously to the Chicago and stuff like that.
Sure.
You know, and Milwaukee, but nothing. Not like, so. This is definitely gonna be my first time. Yeah, for sure.
Awesome.
Well, we're excited to have you, Francisco, and we really appreciate your time today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. I know that everybody back home is excited about the comedy series. Excited to have you, and. We're looking forward to October, buddy. So,
and I'm looking forward to the scotch and the wings, man. So,
well, you enjoy the
rest. Good for good on the Three Ravens. Really good wings and scotch. So,
well, you enjoy the rest of your day, and we will see you in October.
Thank you, you too, guys. Thank you for having me, and yeah, have a great rest of the week.
Take care.
Bye.
Oh man, what a great dude!
Yeah, man.
What a great dude.
Well, and I could have talked shop with him for a long time, because if he and I we have very similar points of view and sensibilities when it comes to it. So
I think that's great to see, to have someone like me who has questions about the comedy space because I don't live in it. Again, being a musician, I have my own space, my space.
Somebody ought to start a website called that. Maybe compete with Facebook.
Boy. Yeah. Anyhow, I will tell you here, as a fan of comedy and just as a person in general, it's always great to get those perspectives. And it's neat to see them align, especially when it's someone that, Larry, you and I have never really, like, that was the first time we met Francisco, right? And it was neat to see your guys' alignment on a lot of those topics.
Yeah, it was well, and especially, you know, the fact that I came up in the Midwest, he's coming up obviously on the East Coast, and you know, a little bit back and forth, but you know, and to see that the comedy philosophies are pretty much aligned no matter where you go. It's because it's the same with, you know, a lot of people that I know came up in like the LA scene. It's very, very similar. So it's comforting and also funny that we all are just like aligned on a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, seemed like a real genuine dude. I've watched quite a bit of his stand-up, and honestly, that's how I find people, right? I feel like I might be patting myself on the back here, but I feel like I'm a relatively good judge of talent. So when I choose these like the comics we have coming in the comedy series, I do a lot of work, a lot of legwork to find who I think will fit the room, and who will do well. And he kind of fell in my lap. I really enjoyed what I saw. I always am curious to how comedians feel. Like, I always don't want to watch too much. If it's someone that I'm going to see, like Brad Williams, right? The last comedian before I left, I saw Brad Williams in January. And I'm always nervous to watch too much of his content that's out there because I don't want to ruin the show, right?
Right. Yep.
So how do you feel about that? Because people, you know, comics, just like musicians, they recycle material. It doesn't make it any less funny, but they do have to recycle material.
Well, you know, it really it depends. And I say that because, Francisco mentioned that comedy is all about the surprise. The laugh comes. Comedy is almost like a magic trick. If you're expecting the magic trick and you've seen how it's done, it loses some of its whoa. But there's some.
I gotta cut you off right there. You were in cyberspace in November and telling a story, and somebody in the back said it was a cop or something to that extent, and you leaned away from the microphone and you just said, "Hey, buddy, you do not get extra credit for reading ahead." And the room lost it, and I'm like, "Oh man, that is perfect, perfect."
Yeah. Turns out that dude had actually seen that story before, and so when it came out, he told me later. He's like, "It just fell out of my face." And I didn't mean to, and I was like, dude, I'm not mad. It worked. We made the joke. But yeah, there's some bits I'll watch from some comics that I'll watch over and over again, and I'll still laugh out loud. But I work on material, and I work on material, and I work on material until I get it right, and then I'll start, like, especially if I'm going back to the same places, I'll try to have, if not a completely new 45 minutes to 60 minutes, I'll have at least a new 30 and a reworked 30, or try to look back and be like, what did I do here? All right, let's do a completely different set here. So it's I'm all about staying sharp and trying to write new material, because again, I don't want to, not for nothing, I just don't understand how anybody could do the same act for 20 years.
Sure.
I mean, if you're successful doing it, by all means, God love you, go for it. But I would just get bored doing the same bit for like 8 months. And I hit that point where I'm like, oh, I don't want to tell this one again. I'm going to figure out something new.
Just imagine how Metallica feels.
As they go to sleep on their piles of money. Yeah. Oh, poor that little goblin Lars Ulrich. Yeah.
All right. Hey, I think we've extended the show quite a bit, but it was all engaging, good conversation. How I'd want to end is not the most exciting way, but I feel with what has happened in the past week, it deserves some respect, and that's mentioning the passing of Donnie Baker, who was Ron Sexton in the real world.
Yeah. Ron was a super nice guy. He's also Kenny Tarmac and Floyd the Trucker and every other call-in guest on Bob and Tom. He just did
gold on Bob and Tom,
all the voices, and to see all the comics that had worked with him and had been friends with him, like Pat Godwin, or Drew Hastings, that were just like, this is devastating. Friends like Chris Spire, that owns Mason City Limits. He knew Ron.
I actually saw Donnie Baker up in Mason City twice. I enjoyed it so much. He was really he was almost the gateway to comedy shows for me, to be 100% honest. I always enjoyed comedy, but I just didn't know what it would be like sitting in a comedy show until I went to a Donnie Baker show, and I wondered why I hadn't gone to more before going to a Donnie Baker show. After the second year, he kind of remembered us from the year prior. We leave the show. We're gonna go do a little bar hop, and I don't know, Mason City, it's actually a hop, right?
Yeah,
Mason City's not that big.
You can hop to all 3 bars.
Correct. So anyway, the first bar, a guy is playing an acoustic guitar named Matt Miller. It was great. My wife, me being a musician, I try not to step on toes, but we'd had a couple cocktails. My wife's like, get up there and sing with them. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. She kind of shoved me up there. So I did that. Felt like a fool. And then after I walk off of the stage, I see Ron Sexton just hanging out at the bar, and I'm like, no shit. So I go over there and introduce myself, and we talked for 2.5 hours. It seemed like. I don't know if it was really that long, but that It was just a great, engaging conversation. He's very passionate about baseball. He talked about the teams that he coached. I really enjoyed it. And then he talked about just getting into golf. And we were supposed to, and the next time that he came back around, occasionally I'd text him and ask him if he's got his clubs yet, because he's a lefty. I'm a left-handed guy too. So I'd see him kind of passing through and ask if he had his clubs, and we never got a chance to play golf. But yeah, just a genuine dude.
Yeah. Yep. And just I never heard a bad word about him, which is rare, because you're always going to rub somebody the wrong way. And it seemed like he never rubbed anybody the wrong way, or at least other comics. And so and now hearing that story, wow. So yeah, it's a real loss to the comedy community and to his family and his loved ones in particular. I saw their post and it was just heartbreaking. So we marry along the way, good sir.
Yeah,
hate
thoughts
to
are
lose
out
you.
to them. Yep, out to the friends and the family of Ron Sexton. Hey, we're going to close this show out tonight, folks. We want to thank Cole Norton of American Family Insurance one more time. Again, he will be the sponsor for our first show featuring Francisco Ramos. That show is October 12th through the 14th. He'll be doing 5 shows. It's going to be a great time. So, folks, we're going to sign off. We will see you next week with potentially another guest on the show. Have a great night.
Bye, everybody.
Daddy said he's gonna wet my ass if he ever catches me smoking that grass. Oh,